Thank you for joining us at the Flourish Forum for our first lesson in Learning Pointed Pen Calligraphy from Copperplate to Contemporary. Today we're going to go over some of the supplies needed to get started. These are some of my favorites. There's a huge range of supplies out there, so just find the one that works best for you. I do try and change it up a bit and try different ones, and then I usually go back to my old favorites, but sometimes I discover new favorites as well. This is a copy paper I like to use. It's HP Premium Choice Laser Printer paper, and it's 32 pound and 98 brightness. I find it has a nice smoothness that doesn't snag. It's great for flourishing, and it doesn't feather ink as well. It also works really well for reproduction. These are some of the books that I recommend for starting Copperplate. This book here, Mastering Copperplate Calligraphy by Eleanor Winters, is the book that I started with when I started teaching myself. I also like to use this, the Zenarian Manual of Alphabets Engrossing. It has some fantastic lessons in here, starting right from the very beginning. This is a newer book called Calligraphy in 24 Hours by Vajko Kaspersaks. I hope I'm pronouncing his name properly. But I love this book because it has beautiful exemplars in both simple and flourished copperplate, as well as many other alphabets. For Spencerian, there's also some really great books. This is an oldie but goodie, the Ames Compendium of Practical Penmanship, which has some outstanding instruction on Spencerian, which is similar to copperplate, except it has less thicks and thin variations. Learning to Write Spencerian Script is one of the first books I used to learn by Michael Soule and Deborah Rapp. And this book walks you through from start to finish as well. Another oldie but goodie is the Tamblyn Home Instructor in Penmanship. And this book is great. It really has a very in-depth exploration of pointed pen Spencerian writing. One of the newer books for contemporary calligraphy, actually one of a kind, is Modern Calligraphy by Molly Suberthorpe. And this is a really fun book with great projects and a variety of different alphabets to try. And then these are some of the nibs that I like. The Hunt 56. I used to have a large collection of vintage Hunt 56 nibs, which were my absolute favorite. Unfortunately, I ran out of those and haven't been able to find more. The Hunt 101 is a great beginner's nib, as well as providing a really nice difference between the thicks and the thins. The Nico G and the Nico Zebra are newer nibs, but are very reliable, and I really like the lines that they give as well. This is my current favorite, the Hero 41. I like it because it gives a little bit of smoothness to the squared off tops and bottoms of the letters, but gives a really nice thick and thin as well. And as you can see, there's a huge variety of nibs available. It's really about finding which ones work best for you. And as many nibs as there are inks. This happens to be my personal favorite. It's a walnut drawing ink. It's made by Tom Norton Designs. You can see I buy it in a very large container, which I go through quickly. You can also buy it in a smaller container. And also we have Sumi ink, which produces a really nice, thick black ink. This is my setup for doing calligraphy. I always work on a light box just because I find it easier, and then I don't have to draw on the lines. Some calligraphers really enjoy drawing the lines. They find it meditative and relaxing and helps them get ready. I just find it really cumbersome and slows me down and kind of annoying, so I like to use Lightbox and use my guidelines. I've created a guideline template for you to use as well, and it's attached with the lesson in the forum. But as you can see, you put the Copperplate guideline down and then your sheet on top of it, and you have your pen. I also like to use these dinky dips because it makes it a lot easier to reach your ink and isn't as messy. It now comes in a large size as well as a smaller size. Now I like to set up with a roll of paper towels, a water for dipping my pen in, and also another paper towel for wiping off my nib as I go. And that's the setup. So let's get started. The first stroke we're going to learn today is called the full pressure stroke. This is a thick stroke that's equally weighted at both the top and the bottom. I'm going to show you these strokes closer up after I go through this, but I thought it would be helpful for you to see the speed at which I work and also how long a dip of the nib lasts before the ink runs out. Some people like to touch the pen to a piece of paper before they write, but I just gently tap my pen against the side of the inkwell before beginning. This next stroke is the pressure and release stroke, where you start off with pressure and then you release as you go towards the bottom. It can start either the X height or at the top, depending on the letter. Press, release, press, release, press, release. The taller of these strokes is used for letters like D and B and L, but we will be adding a little bit of a curve for the B and the L, but we'll get to that. The smaller of the press and release is used for things such as the V, the U, and the back of the A, or the second half of the A. You want to try and make these strokes as even as you can, and once you start practicing, you'll get a feel for what the equal weight is between the down pressure stroke and the uplifting release stroke. The reverse of that pressure and release stroke is where you start lightly and then you press down. So it's light pressure, light pressure, light pressure. And these make up letters like N and M. It just takes a little bit of practice to get a rhythm going, and you want to make sure that you're putting an equal amount of weight on both sides of the nib, both as you're going up and as you're going down. This will ensure that you have a nice thick line without any jagged edges on either side, as well as keep very smooth light strokes without that shaky line that we all try to avoid. You can see this is how we make the letter V as well. And sometimes it's fun just to practice in a big straight line. Press and release, press and release, press and release. These strokes also make up the W and the letter U. And I'll show these in more detail in just a minute. The next stroke we're going to learn is the O form. I find this the trickiest stroke in the whole alphabet, but it really is what makes or breaks your lettering. It should be more of an oval shape than a circular, and it's done in a counterclockwise movement with the pressure on the left-hand side. The trickiest part for me is matching up the hairline strokes, where you begin on the right and then where you end up on the right as well. This stroke forms the letter O, the A, the D, and you also could use it in some other letters. Important when you do the A is that your second stroke, your downward stroke on the right, doesn't bump into the oval. You want to maintain that oval form. It's important that you keep consistent pressure as you go down, and that your weight is the same on the top as it is on the bottom. This is really the trickiest form, I think, but once you get the hang of it, it's not too bad. Here I'm just going to review each step a little bit closer up. Again, this is the first stroke that we learn, and this is the full pressure stroke. You start at the top and go all the way to the bottom with full pressure. There is some variability here in how thick or thin you can make that line. And then you want to go down, release, and curve up. You can do it at the X height as well. Down, release, pressure, release, pressure, release. Notice that you're releasing just as you get towards the bottom line. And this is the reverse. You start off with a thin hairline, pressure, release, and go up. Pressure and release, pressure and release. There's the U. A little uneven there, but that's okay. And then this is the opposite. There you go, release and then pressure, release and then pressure, release and then pressure, release and then pressure for the N, and again for the M. And then this is the O form. Again, we're going in a counterclockwise motion with the pressure on the left side of the oval. The trickiest part is matching up those on the right. And this is how you make the A as well. And that's how we do our basic letter forms. So that's our first lesson. I hope you enjoyed it. There are many more to come. Don't forget to download the handouts that are attached to the lesson in the forum. And if you have any questions, please post them. Don't forget to practice and stay tuned for more lessons. I hope to see you at the forum.